Welcome to this week's 2-Minute Tuesday. A smoke control system must be able to remain in operation to allow the building occupants to be alerted, evacuated and protected in their building for 60 minutes for large and or complex buildings and for 30 minutes for other buildings. There is also a requirement to maintain functionality to serving active systems for protecting and assisting firefighters in their role for 60 minutes or 120 minutes depending on the specific firefighting application. When considering how a smoke ventilation system will remain operational, it's important to consider the thing that holds it all together, the cable. Before we go further, I'm going to briefly explain the difference between two types of fire-rated cables: fire-resistant cable and fire-retardant cables. They may sound very similar, but both types of cables are required to perform differently in the event of a fire. Fire-resistant cables are designed such that, in the event of a fire, they maintain circuit integrity, whereas the fire-retardant cables are designed such that in the event of a fire, they limit the generation and spread of fire and smoke. As we want the smoke ventilation system to remain operational, we're usually focusing on the fire resistance of the cable. So into the detail. The cables selected for life safety and firefighting systems should be either fire resistant cables meeting the minimum fire survival time categories for the appropriate application, or non-fire resistant high voltage cables with their own fire protection. This protection is described in detail in clause 12 of BS 8519/2010. But at a high level, it's a 120-minute fire protective enclosure like a duct or a shaft that contains only the cable. It's worth noting that the authorities having jurisdiction, the AHJ, in the area of construction may specify a particular category to satisfy the requirements of the structure in its location. Here's an overview of the different categories specified in BS 8519/2010. Although this doesn't apply to cables under 20 mm in diameter, there's a different requirement for these, which is listed in BS 8491. So, Category 1 cables are used only for means of escape system elements and have a 30-minute fire survival time. Category 2 cables are used only for means of escape system elements but have a 60-minute fire survival time. Category 3 cables are used for firefighting system elements and have a 120-minute fire survival time. There is a big table in 8519/2010, named Table 1, which tells us which category we must use for each life safety system in the building. What we can see from looking at the table is that most firefighting requirements require Category 3 cable and most means of escape requirements require Category 2 cable. As most systems are for both means of escape and firefighting, under the requirements of B1 and B5 of Building Regulation 38, most of the buildings will require Category 3 cable. It's also important to highlight cable support. It's really critical that cables are properly supported, as in the past there have been tragedies where cable containment has failed and firefighters have become entangled in cables and have been unable to escape. Therefore, it notes in BS 7671 that methods of cable support should be non-combustible and that circuit integrity is not reduced below that afforded by the cable used and should be able to withstand a similar temperature and duration to that of the cable whilst maintaining adequate support. Whilst there is a huge amount more detail on cable selection and standards, hopefully this video has helped outline the basic principles and some of the key documents you need to be aware of. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and as always, I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.